Welcome to the Earthworks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons for the Earthworks podcast. I recently had the great pleasure of recording a two-part series with my friend Peter McCormick. And if you've been in the turf industry for any length of time, you know of TurfNet. Peter is the founder and the maestro of TurfNet, one of the most innovative platforms, certainly in its day back in the 90s when it was first introduced, and still continues to be an innovative platform, building a community for turf heads all through the country and all over the world. Peter talks about the beginning of TurfNet and about his background in the turf industry on part one. But on part two, we turn the tables to a subject that's a little bit more serious and very near and dear to Peter's heart, and that's the subject of mental health. Peter has been battling depression for many years, and he opens up about his experiences and about some of the warning signs that we all can benefit by understanding and maybe help people that are near and dear to us. Take a listen, and I hope you enjoy. Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons, and I'm very excited to have the maestro on the screen with us today, Mr. Peter McCormick from TurfNet. I think I've known you for, 30 years, maybe? Something like that. Peter used to be a Jersey guy, and actually you lived fairly close to where I still reside in the western edge of New Jersey. You were out near Princeton, but how old is TurfNet now?
28, not quite as old as Earthworks, but my first goal was to not be one of the 90% of new businesses who don't make it to 5 years. So I think
2 years for that matter. Yeah,
we did that.
Yeah, no, you did pretty well for all that kind of stuff. So you started this in the heat of when golf was really going nuts. And so give me a little background. I know you and I met when you were working at Store Tractor, I guess the Central New Jersey Toro distributor.
Yeah.
And you were actually selling hardware. Is that what you did?
Selling red iron. I was the sales manager. Yeah, I had been the sales manager for a Jacobson distributor in Central New Jersey before that, but I try to sort of sweep that one under the rug.
Don't talk about that.
No, that was a good experience that led to something else, but not something that I like to dwell on.
So how did you get into iron sales? I don't even know your background prior to all this. Do you have a degree in any of this stuff?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick Cook's tour.
Thank you.
I went to Rutgers, started in pre-med, believe it or not.
I don't believe it, but go ahead.
Class of 76. I was in pre-med because I liked biology, but lack of anything better. There were 1,000 people in that curriculum my freshman year. The second year, there were 100. So
wow.
The attrition rate was pretty nuts. And I was one of those 900 who bailed. I just wasn't going to make it. I was too interested in beer and all the other stuff that was going
college
on.
Life.
College life. So I had transferred over to the ag school, which became Cook College, which became whatever it is now.
I know it well.
Yeah, and I majored in environmental science, which was more of a free-form curriculum with a minor in business. I always knew that I wanted to have a business of my own. I took more horticulture classes than actual environmental science, more of an emphasis on floriculture. So I got out of there in 76. That was the year before Bruce Clark, if we want to put some context on this thing. It was a long time ago. But in any case, so when I got out of there, I worked in the commercial floriculture business, growing cut flowers for the greenhouse business. And that lasted about 7 years until this was at the time when overnight air freight was becoming a thing. And so a lot of the cut flowers started coming in from South America, Colombia in particular. And the quality was great. They didn't have to pay for heat down there or anything like that in the greenhouses, but they also had an illicit product down there that they were stuffing in some of the
petunias,
flower pots. Yes.
in the carnations.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Clever.
Every 10th box had a load of contraband in it.
Yeah.
So
Happy anniversary, honey. Here's some flowers. Oh, and
That's
some other stuff.
They didn't really care whether they made money on the flowers or not. So that tanked the domestic cut flower business for all intents and purposes. It's just,
this is in the late 70s, early 80s.
This would have been, yes. Yeah, that was 77 to 82, I guess. I got fired from there.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, stayed too long. Worked very briefly for a landscape contractor, which was the absolute nadir of my professional life.
I'm not even sure what that word means, but that's good.
That's like
the bottom of the barrel.
The bottom of the barrel.
Yes. Half kidding.
But I learned enough of the lingo and the that kind of stuff that the job came up fairly locally to where I lived for this sales manager job at a Jacobson distributor. And I didn't know an F10 from a friggin' bulldozer at the time. But, turns out that he was, the owners were sort of friends with my wife's, a couple of my wife's family, so I don't know whether that made any difference or not, but I got that job. I quickly found out that I got it because nobody else wanted it.
Oh, those are always the best jobs.
Yeah, it was great,
Yeah, see who we can run down the pole here. This will be fun.
So I looked at that as sort of being like going in the Marines, where okay, this is going to be a good experience where I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm going to meet as many people as I can. I'm going to stay on good terms with my competitors. And I'm going to get the hell out as soon as I can.
Right.
And it took me about 2.5 years. One of the sales guys at Store Tractor said, "Hey, our business is growing, blah, blah, blah. They're looking for somebody. Why don't you give them a holler?" So I did, and push come, things happened. And so I jumped over there.
What year was that?
85.
So a Toro distributor in 85 was selling to whom mostly? Was golf really the big focus?
Well, Store Tractor was different than most Toro distributors. That most of them were either golf or consumer.
Oh, okay.
Where Store catered very heavily to municipalities, schools, parks, that kind of thing, where a lot of them did not. So, and we did not have consumer. So, and we had a branch on Long Island. So I became the sales manager there, and I was supporting, I think, 9 guys on the road, trying to keep them with what they need to do their job and keep our customers happy and all that good stuff. And there was a transition in ownership there that didn't work out so well.
Well said. And we'll leave it at that.
I got fired there too.
Oh, good. Well, you got a history of that. Why not?
Yes.
That's good. So you might as well start your own business then.
Both times. And there were actually a couple of other minor terminations in my early career.
Now, is this all because of your unspoken outspokenness?
In part, perhaps. I think so far as leaving the greenhouse business and also getting sacked at Store was that I'd stayed too long.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a lesson.
You get bored and I had little kids at home and the mortgage and all that stuff. So it was just not the kind of thing that I just really wanted to punt and.
Yeah.
it's not like there are opportunities all over the country for that, that kind of experience. And I like the business.
Yeah.
I like the business. I like the guys we dealt with.
So at store, you were working mostly golf course. You were getting to know all the guys.
Oh, both.
Okay, but you
Both,
still got to go. You got to know a lot of guys in the local
yes,
area, and
yes,
and they got to know you a bit,
and that was crucial to being able to start TurfNet. The sort of the proverbial last straw was we had gone to the company Christmas party, and the party thing sort of
this is starting off badly, but go ahead.
The party thing was in quotes.
Yeah.
The owner of the company got up and talked about what a record year we had and all that kind of stuff, and then absolutely ripped into people with bad attitudes and that kind of thing, and everybody in the room turned and looked at me.
And then one of these things.
Yeah, exactly. Or,
Yeah, right. Big arrows pointing at you.
Well,
kind of got the hint right there, didn't you?
Meanwhile, my wife's crawling under the table, and she's trying to hide. And I ironically, this was on the 17th of December. Ironically, the week prior to that, I woke up in the middle of the night with a dream. I had a dream.
I had a dream.
I'm serious. And so I woke up, sat bolt upright in bed, 4:00 in the morning, and I had this concept of starting something like TurfNet. Now, it wasn't what ultimately came to pass, but it was close enough. In any case, so I said to my wife at that party, I said, relax, I got something going on.
I got a plan. I had a dream.
I had a dream anyway.
Plan. And don't worry, honey, the mortgage will get paid.
That's right. Don't sweat it. But it was the weirdest thing where, 6 weeks later, I went to the National in Dallas, bummed the bed off of one of the guys that I knew. And I remember I rented this little Geo Metro. It was like one of those Fred Flintstone cars where you had a hole in the floor. One of those things. But so I went on the trade show floor with homemade business cards and little trifold brochures and buttonhole guys that I knew from New Jersey and Long Island. And I just basically stuck a brochure in their pocket and said, look, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'll be in touch. When I left the hotel room that morning, it was the scariest thing I ever did in my life. I mean, I was okay.
Hey, starting a business is petrifying.
Well, when you're talking about doing it alone too, it's I'm in the middle of freaking nowhere.
What year is this, Pete?
This would have been 94.
Yeah, I remember that trade show. That was I think that might have been my first trade show. I did a breakfast meeting. Nobody showed up, not one person except Glenn Smickley, who ended up basically putting Earthworks on the map. Thank you, Glenn. But yeah, I remember that show well. I might have even met you there, or seen you there, because I knew you from the dog and pony shows in New Jersey.
Yeah, so we did an exhibit there.
Yeah.
Interesting story about my first trade show exhibit. This was at the NYSTA, the New York State Turfgrass Association show, which was in Rochester back in the day.
I remember that.
And this was 96. And I had just popped $6,000 for one of those, geodesic frame pop-up things with the carpet on it and the graphics and all that kind of stuff.
I still have one of those in the basement.
Yeah, well, that's where mine is too.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you like to buy it? I think there's some stale Tootsie Rolls in mine also.
That's probably true. They're worth a lot of money now, those Tootsie Rolls.
Yes. In any case, well, now you can buy those pull-up things for $100.
Oh, we just buy a sheet and put it on a. We just hang it. Print a sheet, and it's kind of neat. It folds up in a bag, and I can put it in a briefcase. compared to that whole box and all that shipping, all that stuff. Yeah.
But in any case, so, I was living in New Jersey then. It was about an 8 hour, I don't know, what was it, 6, 7, 8 hour drive to Rochester. And again, whenever it was, December, I think. And I'm all ready to go, man. I'm ready to sell, grow the business. I go in there, and the crowd was a little rougher than what I was used to.
More landscapers?
Even among the golf guys, there were quite a few flannel shirts and, muddy boots.
Working guys.
Yeah, so that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. They'd walk by my booth, and I'm standing there, and I just got blank stares.
Well, think about it. I mean, this idea you came up with in the middle of the night as you were getting fired, and in 1990 something, 94, did we even have computers in 94? We didn't have cell phones.
Yes, we had PCs. I actually bought one the year prior.
Your first PC?
Yes.
So you bought your PC that year prior, and then you started an online business the next year.
Well, the online thing didn't start for about a year after.
Oh, that's right. You were all print.
I started with that print. Yeah, the print newsletter. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that. I probably have some of those copies in my.
But I had a little. I think I had a monitor. Maybe I didn't. As a matter of fact, I don't think I did. At this trade show in Rochester. So the punchline there is, at the end of that show, I had the whole of the donut to show for it.
Oops.
In terms of new business.
Well, now, honey, it didn't go so well.
You want to talk about a long drive home? Oh my God.
I can imagine.
It's like, what, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But hey, you get past it.
What did you have at that show? So, I mean, for those that don't remember, and you just reminded me, because I'd forgotten this, because you've been doing the online so long. You actually did a monthly printed TurfNet piece that, you got interviews and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What did you have with you at that show? I mean, did you have your first publication done?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, yeah, because that show was 96. So I must have had it.
Oh, so you were a couple years in by then. You had a couple.
Yeah, I've got, because we started online the next year with a dial-up thing, actually I had a 486 computer in my house, one phone line into it. Guys would dial long distance, would dial long distance into that, and one guy could go on at a time. This was pre-web. This was not on the web. This was a dial-up thing. Bruce Peoples, who was at Spring Lake Golf Club in New Jersey,
remember Bruce well.
First guy
really
to ever log into TurfNet online. Yes. So that was, that went for several months. And then I took the big step to put this additional card in my computer, and I could get 2 additional lines hooked up. So 3 guys could get on at once.
Wow.
Yes. So then the next year, the web sort of evolved, and that's when we moved to the web, so guys could, and do it like they do now. So
let's go back to the very beginning. So I mean, what most people know of TurfNet is the forum, the conversation between. What was in your head at 4 a.m. that morning when you woke up? What are you thinking?
Well, primarily because I was in the equipment business, and up until that point, 1990, you had Jacobson, you had Toro. If you wanted a triplex greens mower, Toro had a Greensmaster 300 and Jacobson had a Greens King 4 or whatever it was. So, and you could have 8 or 9 blade reels or 11 blade reels or whatever it was. So the product selection was not that difficult. So then John Deere comes on the scene, and all of a sudden the waters became a little bit muddied.
Yeah.
And so, in my waning days at store, I would get calls from guys saying, look, I need a turf sweeper. What's out there in turf sweepers? or, I need a blower or whatever it happens to be. And so not only those three big, the orange, green, and red, but you had these smaller vendors were, contributing to the product mix. So my thought was, let's, sort of do a consumer reports kind of a thing and let guys contribute what they, what they're using, what works, what doesn't work so great, prices that they pay, because that was a major hot button back
You were
then.
putting prices in the newsletter back in the early 90s?
Price ranges, yes.
Okay, wow.
And yeah,
Luckily, you couldn't get fired from your own company. That was the great thing about this.
well, it was, but that rattled a few cages.
Yeah, I remember that.
And which has been one of my hallmarks, I guess.
Yes, and your strengths, something to be proud of.
Rattling cages. So the forum thing was big, and it was not only for the exchange of information, but all of a sudden guys got to know one another, and they'd see each other at the national, and there's bear hugs and back slapping and making vacation plans to go fishing or hunting together. And then we started the beer and pretzels thing to sort of give an offsite or an offsite venue for the guys to get together, and big fraternity party. You leave your coat and tie in the hotel,
Right.
Just come and have a few beers,
Flops and shorts and beers.
Yeah, that's it. So, but one of the the two other components that I have to really point to as sort of springboarding things, the job listings for
Right.
one.
Yeah, exactly. That's huge.
Well, GCSA had their employment referral service or whatever it was back in the day that, they were charging pretty big money, $300 a pop, I think, to post a superintendent job, and $100 to post something else. And, this was in the days of stamps and, paper and postage and envelopes and all that kind of stuff. And there was a cost for that, but then they were charging the members for, a fee to access that, which I thought was kind of double dipping a little bit. So in the under the guy, or my mantra of stirring things up, I said, well, screw it, I'm going to do it for free.
Right. Let's just piss everybody off and just do it for free. And
Well, but the thing is that once you put it online, there's no incremental cost of
Right,
the next guy
exactly.
looking at it.
Yeah.
So why is there all these charges? Why? It's
Because they
unnecessary.
could.
Well, they could. And, one of the things that I've always believed in is that a company in any business, one of the best things they could do is contribute to full and complete employment.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so, that became big. We did it for free for everybody for a while, until once I would pitch somebody about, hey, why don't you just sign up as a member? Come on in the forum, this kind of stuff. And they'd say, there's no value there. I just use your job listings and that's it. Oh, there's no value there. Okay, well, I'm going to start charging you for job listings, whereas the members get them for free.
Oh, brilliant.
Well,
Business 101, right?
Well, yeah, hey. So, that's the way it is still. Members
Yeah.
get it for free, and others pay for it. And that's become
And that's perfectly fair. I mean, that's business.
And it's still economical.
Yeah, exactly. And
The
still,
other
and then, even in this incredible, market of trying to find people, you guys are still getting a lot of attention.
Well,
Yeah.
if you go to any of the turf clubs or any of that
Yeah.
kind of thing and talk to the kids, they all know, or, everybody checks TurfNet.
Yeah. Let me go back to the early days. I mean, that day you woke up in your bedroom. I mean, what was there at the time? I mean, you're pretty much a groundbreaker in everything you've ever done in this thing. I mean, was there anything like TurfNet when you
No,
decided to make this?
no.
And you had no journalism background. You had no background in, at least not educationally, in doing any of this. So this is really completely a step out. And you walked into something that was unknown. I mean, you were in a dark room by yourself for a while there, weren't you?
Yes, I do have a genetic lineage, family lineage in journalism.
Oh, there you go. Does it
Going
rub off?
back,
I guess it does.
it does,
Yeah.
because my daughters both got it
Oh,
from me.
okay. Yes, I knew that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, of course,
So,
you've also
yeah,
been doing it now professionally for quite a while.
yes, it is. It's definitely passed down.
This was a grandfather or something. What was it?
My maternal grandmother she actually got a master's degree in English literature from Columbia in like
Oh, wow.
1906.
Well, that's because there was only 3 degrees in 1906, and that was one of them.
Well, for a woman, that was
Yeah.
unusual back in the day. She wrote children's first readers. My grandfather was a dictionary editor. My aunt was a photojournalist for a national magazine. My great uncle had a string of newspapers in Ohio. So,
Wow, you really do have a lineage.
Yeah, yeah.
So what the hell are you doing in turf, for God's sake?
Hey, I've always been able to write well. And
Yeah,
one of the
that's
things
obvious.
that guys would tell me is that they say when they read my stuff, it's like I'm talking to them like
Yeah,
this.
yeah. So back to the first thoughts. I mean, you're absolutely brand spanking new idea. I mean, I don't remember anything prior to
No,
TurfNet.
there wasn't. There were, the magazines.
Yeah, of
That
course.
everybody got for free, the print magazines. There were no digital editions or anything like that. Because digital didn't exist. So we were the first to actually charge for information.
Ah, there you go. Okay. Well, that's the business piece of it. Yeah.
And there was no advertising in the beginning.
Yeah. That's right. I remember that as well.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how tough were those first few years? I mean, how much did your wife, how many times did she say, how long are you going to play with this until
No, she was great right from the start. It was kind of
you have a
interesting. She was
wonderful
a middle school teacher at an independent school in Princeton. And
Yeah.
she had taken 10 years off to raise the kids during their early formative years. And our younger daughter B, had just gone back to school full time, or gone to school full time, where Patty gets a call from the old school, said, "Hey, we have an opening." This was, I swear to God, concurrent with my whole flip.
Oh, Patty got that call when TurfNet was in its infancy.
Yes, that
Good timing.
That spring.
Yeah.
So how tough was it? Well, you get your Social Security statements where it says how much you made every year during your thing. In 1994, for me, was $5,500.
I think I had a goose egg on my first year at Earthworks.
Well, that would have been unemployment insurance for me.
Yeah.
But then it gained traction. I always try to, I didn't take on any major debt other than that first trade show booth.
Yeah.
But
well, you used it a couple more times, I believe.
Yeah, I did. But you let it grow organically, and there was no plan, and I still don't have a plan.
Well, that's how most businesses run, right?
Well, yeah. I mean. Yeah. I see these business pundits back in the day, they'd say, oh, you got to have, do long range planning, 5, 10, 15 years. What's long range planning today? 6 months?
Well, yeah. Well, what's the old adage? Instant gratification isn't fast enough. So it's just, we don't have a memory.
Yeah, there you go. So,
you'd mentioned that, what is the statistic? Most businesses don't last but 2 years before they go under.
90% don't make 5 years, might be 2 years.
I remember I had met my wife. I was actually in a Big Brothers program, and I met her. We went out for a date, and I was living on unemployment, and it didn't go over real well. She's like, you're doing what? You're living on? Well, I'm living, but I had my first bag, so I was able to show her that I was like, I had this idea.
Here's my business card.
Right, I have a business card,
and
I had a bag. I had a bag that I was going to fill up with chicken poop, but those are frightening days, but they're also exciting days. I mean, I think back now as I, run into 35 years in this, and I think, man, those were fun days, and I'm sure they were fun for you when you started getting this thing going, and you were such a groundbreaker, and you were changing the industry, you were changing the way people in our industry thought and worked with each other. And the one thing you just said that was, I think, still to this day striking, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that said, yeah, I never knew Bob or Joe other than from TurfNet, and I finally met them and we're best of friends. Pre-Twitter.
Yeah, I think that if I had to point out one thing that was the most gratifying about this whole thing, I mean, money's fine. I sold the business in 2001. We haven't gotten to that yet.
No, I know.
We probably won't.
No, we will.
This conversation. But, and I stayed on for 21 years to manage.
That's the cool part about selling your business and still being there.
Who does that?
Exactly.
Nobody.
Yeah.
But I just lost my train of thought.
I have a buddy. I'll just tell the story real quick. I have a buddy who is one of my best friends, and he just sold his business this past summer, and he went back to work with him. And I said, I had $100 over under bet on 3 weeks that he would make it, and he didn't make it.
Is that right?
He made 2 weeks and then said, no, I can't work. He couldn't work for anybody. He'd worked by him. He started his own company when he was a kid and never worked for anybody since then. And that's a hard thing to do is sell your business and then work for the business. There were some caveats
when I sold it. No, they were in Orlando. I lived in New Jersey. I told them I'm not moving to Florida.
Right. Thank God. Yeah.
That's it.
In fact, you went north.
Number two was our hockey team stays and beer and pretzel stays. Other than that, just leave me alone.
Oh, I'd forgotten about the hockey thing. Talk about that.
We played there. We played in Fort Erie and Niagara Falls for 22 years.
Wow. Yeah.
But in any case, I lost my train of thought again. What was it?
See what happens as we get through our talk about the hockey thing, though. You had.
Well, let me go back. Go ahead. Because
we
were talking about friends, making friends.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there you go.
And I got off on a tangent on selling the business, and that was fine at the time. It was not .com era monies or any of that kind of stuff, but it allowed me to put my kids through school debt free and to build a nice summer home, which I'm sitting in right now.
Where are you now exactly? Just in case somebody doesn't know.
Campobello Island, New Brunswick, Canada.
Beautiful. And they only let you in for certain times of the year? Is that
6 months of the year?
Is it hard to get in there now with COVID?
Yeah, there's some hoops you have to jump through, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. But your mainstay home is no longer Jersey. You're up in Vermont for the most part.
Yes.
Yeah. So you actually, instead of going to Florida, you went the other way. But go back to that thing, because
there's a funny story there. Everybody in that New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia area, whatever it is, when they start talking about slowing down, they go to the Carolinas or Georgia, down in that, or Florida, whatever.
Yeah. Sunshine and beaches.
So we had built a place in Vermont. No, we had built this place first. And when I told my neighbors and friends in New Jersey that we were moving to Vermont, they said, you got that place up there? What are you doing there? And I said, look, if everybody around here is moving to the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, whatever, taking their attitudes and their lifestyles with them, I'm going the
opposite direction.
And if they catch up, which they're getting close,
yes, they catch
up, I'm going to keep going.
Keep going north. Where do you go next? I mean, how much further north can you go in civilization?
Not very far, and stay in the United States. But in any case, money and all that stuff is fine. I mean, I've been very comfortable. and that's good. You have to be, and the business has been successful. We had a little hiccup with COVID. We had to do a little pivot.
How did COVID affect you guys? You're online.
Advertising.
Oh, they decided to pull out. Well, but the industry was on fire during those years. Yeah, I remember talking to you about that, and I never understood that. And I think
everybody was running scared.
Yeah, I think that's when you and I started promoting this podcast and a couple other things. But
yes,
but yeah, that's it. I mean, it was funny because this podcast started because of COVID, because we didn't know how to communicate with people because we weren't traveling, and it's been phenomenal. I mean, and you've seen, dozens of things like this podcast that have kind of come out of that COVID era, including some stuff that you guys are doing. You've done some pretty interesting, innovative things.
Let me finish up my one thought about friends.
You got it? Good. Yes, please.
All of the other stuff aside, and I like to talk about changing the industry, because how many people can say that they really have changed the industry?
Yeah, no,
but
true.
But the friends and stuff are what it's all about.
Yeah,
people that I know all over the world now, really, and I won't see them anymore because I don't travel anymore. I've given up flying.
But we have these things. We have, we can see each other on the computer.
It's not the same, but
it's not the same. It's definitely not the same.
It's okay. Yeah. So I don't travel. We as a company don't travel anymore. We're not doing any more trade shows, no more conferences, no more sales calls, none of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, is that a victim of COVID as well? Or was that a decision prior?
Well, we had to tighten our belt financially, and travel is, well, we didn't have any choice because nobody was going anywhere for the better part of a year. But when we got past that and took a look back in, we realized not only did we save a lot of money, and it's the old penny saved is a penny earned kind of thing, that money went right to the bottom line. But the interesting thing is the three of us, me, John Kiger, John Reitman, realized that we were more relaxed, less stressed than we ever have been, because we're not running around all over everywhere chasing our tail.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So that didn't make it a very hard decision to sort of memorialize or make that decision permanent.
And the business continues, and it really hasn't changed much. Now, have you gotten back any of the advertising? You've gotten smaller pieces, but
we're doing better than we ever have.
Yeah, that's.
We decided to focus mostly on smaller companies like yours, or even smaller, who we can help with promotionally, marketing wise, give them some guidance. And now all of a sudden, some of the bigger guys are coming back to us.
Oh, there you go. See what happens.
I kind of like
I mean, I give you a lot of credit for the earthwork success, because I got hooked up with you pretty early on. I mean, I remember we did a number of articles for you, before you started really advertising, and those articles really changed the way people look at, and it was all, agronomic stuff. I mean, we weren't selling earthworks necessarily. I remember one that I've not only gotten tremendous criticism for, but a lot of accolade, was the calcium article that we did probably in '96. And
it was a long time ago. You did what, 4 or 5, I think.
Yeah, I did a number of them. And then when you started taking advertising, we've always been a big fan. And it's, I mean, I was tiny at the time, and it really made a big difference, is getting some exposure. And, and for companies that are really kind of getting, and there's still a lot of companies trying to get a foothold in our industry. A platform like yours is exceptional. I mean, it gets to a lot of people.
Well, I also remember telling you, Joel, your website sucks.
Yes, you did. Yes, and then you would, I also remember many times, you spelled this wrong, you spelled that wrong.
Well, I think
all right.
if I recall correctly, I think I rebuilt it for you.
Yes, you were one of the builders at one point in the early years. Yeah, then we found a couple other people. Back then it was funny because there weren't a lot of people really doing a good job for a small company that would build a website. And we got ripped off by a number of people during those years. And then we built one, and it cost us a lot of money, and it was complicated. And then that's when you said it sucked. I think that was your quote.
It was a quote.
Yeah, Joel, your website sucks. Oh, Jesus, right through the heart there, Pete. Thanks. And then you rebuilt it, and
we got the message though, right?
Yes. Well, I listen well. I take criticism well. I mean, it's first emotional. I cry a lot, and I lie on the floor in a dark room. But I took the message, and then you rebuilt the bloody thing, and we hung on to that for a long time. And now, obviously, we, time changes, and we keep moving on. But
as long as we're spraying sunshine around here, I mean, you have done with the podcast thing as good a job as any. And part of it is not only you've got good guests, but it's regular.
It's regular. Yeah. That was
it's not, it's every Friday you've got a new episode, and it's not like, you got one here and then you might have one in another month or two.
And we've been doing it now. This will be coming, this 2.5 years. We have yet to repeat a podcast. So every week we've done this, it has been new. Now
and that's not easy.
No, it's not. I mean, it's talk about stress some days. Like, we're getting to Wednesday, like, what? We don't have a podcast? Oh my God. Who do I call? And by the way, that's not why I called
McCormick.
No, we got a couple in the can now. Luckily, Kevin Hicks, who was just phenomenal. I mean, one of the best things that happened to us. He's very good at this, and he's got a couple things going. And of course, Jack Higgins, who kind of came up with the idea. He's got the other side of it all, and so we got three different distinctive personalities. But having Kevin's 25 years of experience talking to guys is it's really invaluable. And of course, I've been hanging out for a long time. But let's talk about two things I want to hit you up with, in your opinion. Lots of things changed during COVID. Like I said, this podcast started because we were petrified. I mean, I've told you this story, and I've said it probably on the podcast a number of times. When COVID hit, and I made the decision to pull everybody off the road. I mean, we're road warriors, and we're on the road every week. Somebody was somewhere every week, and COVID hits, and I said, look, guys, we're going to sit tight for a while. Of course, we were thinking it's going to be weeks or maybe a month or two, or something. Right. Little did we know it was going to be years. But as months rolled on, as a business owner of, at that point, 30 years, I'm petrified that this whole thing's just going to evaporate, and I'm going to be, living on unemployment. But the industry kind of, it did a little dip, and then it just went right back. And if you're not making money in the golf course industry in the last 2 years, then you're doing something wrong on both sides of the table. I mean, golf courses, sure. How sustainable is this? Are we going to be able to keep that momentum as an industry?
I think that the golf course business was fortunate in being one of the very few business segments that I can think of that benefited from COVID. My concern is not for the game part of the industry. I think golf got a boost because people are now, all of a sudden, people are working remotely. They've got flexibility time-wise that they didn't used to have.
Yeah.
My concern, very honestly, is number one, the labor supply. Where the hell did everybody go?
There's no answer to that question, is there?
So everybody's short-staffed.
Yeah.
You couple that with this accelerating climate change that, I mean, you just look on Twitter and you see that the look at what's going on over in England. I mean, they're like in like a 500-year drought over
Yeah.
there. It's
Well, look at New Jersey, 58 days without rain. We had rain yesterday.
and look at Dallas that got 9 inches of rain,
Yeah, in a day.
2 days
Yeah.
ago, and got another 6, the next day. So my concern is the mental health part of it
Yeah.
for superintendents. A lot of superintendents dig their heels in and, we got to give the client or the customer base what they want and blah, 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 blah. They're doing it with fewer people. The expectations continue, but the expectations continue from among the golfers, but also among superintendents as well.
Well, we're perfectionists as an industry,
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. I mean, that's the greatest part of this industry, and it's also probably the biggest curse. These guys work their asses off, but they own it and they take pride in it, and they won't finish until, and you're never finished as a superintendent. There's always something else.
But that's, if you ask about sustainability, that's the part of it that I am worried about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you don't have the answer either, but is there an answer to the labor crisis? I mean, will we ever get back to pre-COVID labor supplies?
Well, the good news is that within the course of about a year, I think the typical assistant salary that's being offered has probably increased 50%.
Yeah.
Assistants jobs used to be advertised from 35 to 55.
Yeah.
I've seen them up to 100 now.
Oh yeah, all over the country. I mean, in weird places where you never would have thought that. But you can't, I mean, we're having the same conversations internally. I mean, we're paying a lot more because that's the industry right now. The other interesting thing, and when you mentioned assistants, is that assistants are no longer typically just popping from job to job to job to get that big superintendent's job. They're starting to find that, hey, I could be an assistant, especially now that the pay is there. Maybe this is my career. I'll be an assistant. And a lot of superintendents are starting to say, you know what, if this guy wants to make his career as assistant superintendent at my golf course with me, he's great. He works hard and he makes my job easier. That's changing. So you're seeing some of that stuff change as well.
Yeah, I think that also requires an adjustment on the part of many superintendents' historical thing, whereas they would, they want an assistant to come in for 2 years, boom,
and then get out,
and bring the next guy in.
Yeah,
I don't know whether that's the right way to approach it these days also, or not.
I mean, it's if that's what somebody does, then that's their call. But I think as a trend, that is slowing down. And I've talked to many people that well. Tony Girardi, who we know well, and I've had on the podcast. He's had an assistant there for a very long time, and he's like, I'd love the guy to retire. I mean, make my life easier.
Sure.
And, and he's realistic about it, and I can't tell you how many guys I talk to all across the country. Everywhere I go, the first question I get is, hey, do you know any good assistants? Like, yeah, they're all employed and they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
none of them are looking for work.
None of them are looking for a job. That's the problem. Let's talk in the last number of minutes we have. I really want to pick your brain on the whole social media conversation. You guys were really the first, in a way, social media, and certainly in our industry. Now it's nuts, and we can, especially us old guys can crone about this for a while. But when you started TurfNet, you were bringing, the forum was social media at its finest, even in written form. I mean, that was the precursor to everything that we're seeing now in the Twitter world and, and all the other places. But did you have any idea when you started this, that 30 years later, you would still be kind of on that forefront? I mean, and what kind of ramifications has that had, and what kind of changes has the forum taken over the years?
Well, there's no doubt that, Twitter and Facebook, and I tend to discount Facebook. I really, really don't like Facebook.
No,
In fact, I
exactly.
never
Yeah.
use it. I like Twitter. I use it a lot. It has taken some of the wind out of the sails of the forum.
Has it?
Just because, well,
It is the forum, really, if you think about it.
well, yes, in little snippets.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to use. Is it any easier to use than posting the question in the forum? No. Will it go to a wider variety of people? Yes, that's good and it's bad.
Right.
The one thing about the forum is that there was a price tag attached.
Yeah.
You had to pay to get into it, and that in itself served as a filter.
Exactly.
But what happened was that guys would come to know that they can trust the information they get there. On social media, you don't have any idea whether the guy you can look back into their profile or whatever, but you don't know whether this guy's been there 20 years or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I think there's a trust factor there that social media, and again, I'm speaking specifically of Twitter, you have to be careful. Twitter is very public. If there are certain things that you want to discuss that are staffing wise or career wise, or even, personal mental health type things that maybe you want to keep it within the family, so to speak, we've got the advantage there for sure. I was talking to somebody the other day who said that the forum for him as his first medium for exchanging information was critical because he felt safe there.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, and that still applies. You want to talk about something in depth, Twitter is all over the place.
Yeah.
But it serves its purpose. Is it the end all be all? No. Is the forum the end all be all? No. One of the things that Twitter has also killed are the guys' blogs, by and large. And I'm a big fan of
You're talking about superintendents
maintaining a blog.
Yeah.
Primarily because of the continuity and the timeline. If they're documenting something that's going on, a project or whatever, and a question comes up with their green committee or whatever, oh, look, I've got it here. Boom, 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 boom. Here's photos, here's everything. Instead of saying, oh, well, if you go to my Twitter feed, you can pick through it over the last,
Right. You guys have been really good at publishing, the guys that still do the blogs, John over here in New Jersey, and, a handful of guys that you're constantly, and I agree. I mean, that's communication 101 with your boss.
Yeah, John Slade told me, and I used to help guys get set up with nice graphics and all that kind of stuff. So they put their best foot forward. John told me, and he's been doing it, I think, since 2010. He said that is the single most important mode of communication that he has with his customers or clients, golfers at his club, members.
Yeah, I've known John by the way, I've tried to get John on this podcast and he refuses because he says he has nothing to say. I said, John, you were one of the innovators in just this, in the blog. And I still think it's a very valuable, way to do it.
I do too. I'd like to see more guys. Adam Garr out in Michigan has started just writing again in a blog format. And I think the stuff is good.
Yeah. I think it's Kevin Pryzeski, but is Kevin the one that does the blog from the perspective of his dog?
I haven't seen that one.
I think I think Kevin, and I've known Kevin for a long time, trying to get him on the podcast too. I think Kevin does, excuse me, he does his podcast or his blog from the perspective of his dog walking around the property.
Oh, is that right?
Which is very clever. I mean, it's very well
Yeah, I
done.
read a book about that somewhere, something from the perspective of
the dog. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the neat thing about the forum, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as the maestro, you would kind of control the conversation if it got out of hand. And I don't, and I remember a couple of times when many, over the years, have you ever had to really kind of slap somebody for posting stuff that really shouldn't be posted?
By and large, it's always been self-policing.
Yeah, good.
If somebody gets on there and, occasionally I get, a sales guy would sign up and get on there and start beating his chest about, product A being better than product B.
Yeah, you never let us do that.
I always encourage salespeople to go on there and inform.
Yeah, right. Information.
Provide information that will help guys use their product better or any other product better.
Yeah.
But leave the superlatives out of it. I have had to throw a couple of guys out over the years.
Really?
Who just didn't get it.
Yeah.
And typically if somebody, there's one guy now that's some of his content's a little questionable, but
so you're still policing to an extent.
Well, it's sometimes the guys call it to my attention. Other times, I'll see something and I'll send the guy an email. So just smarten up a little bit.
How many people are on TurfNet now?
I don't even know, to be honest with you. It depends. It depends on the public side or the private side.
Well, I don't know. I mean, what's your audience? How big is it? I don't even know anymore. Well, I know it's growing. Is it continually growing?
Yes.
Yeah.
But particularly, we have 500,000 page views on our website every month.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. I assume most of those are the Earthworks podcast, but that's just
that Earthworks podcasts are at the top. Then we got the job listings and the used equipment listings.
Exactly. Exactly. It's funny because I've had a number of what I call the true loyalists on the podcast, and these guys, it's a family. I mean, it's still
no doubt
talking about TurfNet, and these are guys that have been, a lot of this is guys my age. Are you finding, are you maintaining an age group? I mean, is it all us old guys, or are you getting a lot of the millennials in there and the younger guys?
It's getting old. Guys are getting older.
Yeah. So I guess that goes to the question, where is TurfNet in 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I know you hate that question, but not that you really care, because we'll all be gone by then.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like I said, I never plan. There is no plan. I keep my head to the ground and my thumb on the pulse and figure out one of the keys to our success, I think, is that there is no hierarchy.
That's good. Yeah.
And if something makes sense, we do it. And a lot of times we'll do it the next day.
Yeah. And you can move
not
fast.
6 months out or a year
slow.
out.
You're not slow to make those changes.
No.
There's been a lot of copycats. I mean, I know a lot of people try to do some stuff. I mean, has anything stuck? That's really, what's your competition these days? I mean, other than Twitter, but anything specific to?
Well, nobody does the jobs. GCSA is still doing their thing, but I think volume wise, we got a lot more than they do.
I mean, Gary Grigg did his Facebook group, the grounds management group, which is pretty big, but that's just basically a place to sit, right?
Interestingly enough, I think there's a big difference in quality of content between Twitter and Facebook.
Yes.
One reason why I just, with limited time that I'm willing to invest in this kind of thing, I just don't do Facebook. Never did.
Yeah.
Well, I did enough to know that it wasn't worth my time.
Right, right. What do you what's your take? I mean, there's a couple, you know, and I'm not going to get too specific because it becomes self-serving, but there's a lot of folks out there that are just, you know, it's just ugly. You know, Twitter stuff in particular, that just is, it's the whole bullshit line, and all these guys that are out there. I mean, some of the stuff on Twitter is just downright classless.
I don't see that much of that stuff. I'm very particular about following people and who we follow. If somebody's obnoxious, or I just unfollow them.
Right.
Boom.
Well, that's the glory of what we do, right?
Yeah.
You
lose.
Yeah.
You lose. I don't have to read your crap anymore.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I've had many calls like that, as a matter of fact. That's
yeah.
funny.
So, I hear all about, the underbelly of, social media and all that stuff and how it's ugly. And I honestly don't see that much of it. Again, because I'm pretty careful about, and I limit my Twitter exposure to turf and guitars.
I was just going to ask you about guitars.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation. We got to continue this another time.
Yeah, well, it's funny because a lot of us are, I mean, finding you kind of mentioned it's mental health. I mean, I play guitar badly because of mental. It just keeps my mind working, and it's I don't think about the pressures of the day to day, and you've become quite an accomplished musician sitting up there in the northeast, and I
started playing the guitar at age 60. That was 8 years ago. I started playing the piano, keyboard, whatever, about 5 years later. So that's 3 years in now, and it was huge during COVID. Just to take your mind off stuff.
Yeah.
Give you something to immerse yourself in.
Exactly. Get your brain off.
The other part of that is just getting old, because the thing about getting older is that your life becomes more about attrition.
Yeah.
You lose family, you lose friends.
Yeah. We were talking about that.
You lose the ability to do things physically, athletically that you used to do. So as far as I'm concerned, you got to pack more stuff in there.
Yeah. And the other neat thing about, and again, I'm not a good musician by any stretch, but I enjoy it. But it keeps my brain working. I mean, it's mathematics, it's timing, it's
sure.
And there's a lot of study on that. So I encourage anybody, and I certainly would open a door for you if you want to come down. October 1st, the Earthworks band will be playing at Porch Fest in our little town.
Boy.
So yeah, I have a rule in the company that if you don't play an instrument, you're probably not going to be real successful. But I've broken that a lot. But a lot of our core guys, certainly Jack Higgins is quite an accomplished musician, and Mike Small, who does all of our marketing work, is actually studied in this, and my accountant is great, and so we get together and
you go.
Yeah, they kind of let me in because I cook lunch and I have a building that they can practice, and they don't really want me there, but I they have kind of no choice. So anyway, Pete, I hate to say this, but we have run up against an hour, and I would love to have you back again. I know.
Let's do it again. There's a whole bunch more stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I mean, I've known you for a long, long time. I've been like I said, you are truly one of the innovators of this industry, and I think you've changed the industry. And obviously I admire that. And I think the camaraderie and the friendships that you've allowed to happen through TurfNet and, and the beer and pretzels and the trips to Ireland, which I have yet to be invited by. I meant to mention that too.
They're on hiatus right now.
I heard that. But you've really brought a community together that needs a bringing together, and now Twitter has done some of that. But I think that the guys from TurfNet are really family. I mean, when I talk to these guys, I know him. I've known him from TurfNet for years. I've never met him, but I've known him on TurfNet for years, and we consider ourselves friends. So I
feels like you know him.
Right. Well, and that's what Twitter is. I mean, I say this to Kevin Hicks. I mean, Kevin has a huge following, and there's people all over the country that, oh yeah, I know Kevin. Well, actually, I don't know Kevin. I just follow him on Twitter. But when they meet, it's like, oh, I know you. But anyway, I commend you. I congratulate you on your success. I hope you continue to play guitar, and I hope we continue to stay friends. And if you do get back down to New Jersey again, stop by, and we'll actually bring out a couple guitars next time.
Hey, my mother-in-law is going to be 100 years old in October, so we're going to be inbound then.
Hey, October 1st, Porch Fest. You can come down. You can. I'll leave a seat open for you on the porch. Peter, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And folks, that is the Earthworks podcast. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. We'll tell you who's up next. Cool people like Peter McCormick. And Pete, have fun in the Northeast. And I suspect you'll be up there for another couple of weeks before you head south?
Almost another month. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm very jealous of that, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Joel. Take care.